Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mass Retirees Weekly Update. Today's Friday, July 12th. I'm Sean Duhamel. Thank you so much for joining with us and tuning in again this week. Now, I hope you all had a wonderful 4th of July holiday. You know that we took a hiatus last week from our weekly updates, but we are back. And unfortunately, this week's message, we're a little bit angry here at Mass Retirees. Actually, we're a lot angry here at Mass Retirees. The reason for the anger is very simple, and if you've already read, whether it's our weekly email blast that accompanies this video, or have seen the post on our Facebook page or visited massretirees.com, you already know what I'm talking about. On Tuesday of this week, on July 9th, the Boston Herald ran an editorial assaulting our public pension systems here in Massachusetts. The Herald actually has the audacity to call for an end of public pension systems here in Massachusetts, and specifically they focus on the city of Boston's retirement system, which is extraordinarily well run, extremely well funded, and there is absolutely no basis in fact for this type of an attack. Now, we have seen this happen before. Thankfully, it's been quite some time. But for those of you who have been around for a while, whether you're members of our association or were part of organized labor or just pay attention to these things, you know that from time to time in the past, we have seen editorials, we have seen statements from different groups and organizations either attacking public pensions, attacking retiree and active employee health insurance, and leading the general public to believe a lot of things that are just simply not true. And as easy as it would be, and as much as we would prefer to simply ignore this type of nonsense, because that's exactly what it is. It's nonsense. Again, this type of an assault is not based in fact whatsoever. And if you read the editorial itself, and we've contained a link to that in today's email message, as well as on our website, I encourage all of you to read it. Now, the Herald has a paywall, so some of you may or may not be able to get through. So let me just kind of run through the allegations that are presented in this so-called editorial. Now, first and foremost, again, while this is a focus specifically on the city of Boston, it really applies to all 104 public retirement systems across Massachusetts. We have the state and teacher pension systems, which are funded by and administered by the state government. And then we have 102 local retirement systems that are funded and administered by the cities and towns across the Commonwealth, the city of Boston being one of them. Now, if you read the Herald's editorial, and if you were uninformed, to say a member of the public reading the editorial, you'd come away with a few impressions that would be very negative about your retirement, about the health of our public retirement systems. And that type of negativity is unfortunate because there's no need for it. It's based, again, in things that are either misleading or disinformation or just simply not at all true. One of the key takeaways very early on in the editorial, you'll see the Herald reference that public employees are not paying or setting aside one penny, and I'm paraphrasing, a single penny in retirement savings. That's blatantly not true. Active employees today, on average, contribute 10% of their salary into the retirement system. Teachers contribute a flat 11% of their salary into the retirement system. And state troopers contribute 12%, which we believe is the highest contribution out of any public sector worker in the whole country. Now, at the same time, as you know, public employees in Massachusetts, our entire public workforce, as a matter of fact, works outside of the Social Security system. So as a public employee, you do not pay into Social Security. Now, I know many of you had jobs either before, during, or after your public employment that you did pay into Social Security and you earned your 40 quarters or more. But as a public worker, you did not pay in. What that means is that our public retirement systems are the primary source of retirement income for many retirees. As a matter of fact, for some retirees, the public pension is their only source of retirement income. So it makes the success and the proper administration, proper funding of our retirement systems that much more important. But also factored into Social Security, or the lack thereof when it comes to our public workers, it also presents a tremendous savings for the taxpayers. So part of the Herald's editorial is kind of alluding to the fact that our public pension systems are not well funded, and there's this big unfunded liability, and it's going to be a burden on the taxpayers. So just to take the city of Boston as an example, the fact that Boston does not participate in Social Security means that the 6.2% employer contribution that would normally be paid into Social Security is not being paid. That saves Boston taxpayers, and I'm one of them, I live in Dorchester, but it saves Boston taxpayers approximately $70 million a year that would otherwise be paid into Social Security. Now, obviously, the city is making an appropriation to the retirement system, as are active employees, and that money is collectively being invested in the Boston retirement system, along with virtually every other retirement system in Massachusetts, has done a very good job of investing that money and growing the assets, and that's why things have been so successful in recent years. But the Boston retirement system in and of itself, and this is another fact that the Herald editorial got completely wrong, Boston is one of the best funded municipal retirement systems, not only here in Massachusetts, but nationally. It should be celebrated how well Boston has done. And as a matter of fact, we're now on the fifth consecutive mayor, going all the way back to Ray Flynn, who have made a commitment to properly funding the Boston retirement system. And because of those efforts, since the mid-1980s, Boston is set to be fully funded in 2028. So just 4 years from now, less than 4 years from now, Boston will be fully funded per the current schedule. Once the 2023 investment returns, and 2023 was a fantastic year, knock on wood that 2024 continues to be a good year, but just taking the 2023 investment gains alone, once the current valuation is completed, we anticipate that the city of Boston will be close to 90% funded. And again, well on their way to being 100% funded come 2028. So there is hardly any type of a fiscal crisis or even the slightest concern with the funding of the Boston retirement system. Now, the Herald editorial, as you will read, uses the city of Chicago as an example of why we should do away with public pensions. And it's an apples to oranges comparison. What's going on in Chicago or any other part of the country has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with what's happening here in Massachusetts. Now, in Chicago, things are very different. Their pension systems, and they have 4 different pension systems operating within the city of Chicago, if you can believe it. Arguably, there are some funding concerns there, but that has nothing whatsoever to do with us. So to include them as part of this argument is simply pointless and is not at all relevant. Another point that the editorial tries to make, and they focus in on the fact that there are just under 200 Boston retirees out of the more than 14,000 retirees who make up the membership of the Boston retirement system. So less than 200 of the 14,000+ are earning annual pensions at or above $120,000 a year. Now, obviously that's a lot of money. However, those retirees paid into the system. They paid their 10% or whatever the contribution rate was at the time they were hired. They contributed that to the retirement system throughout their working career. They paid for that benefit. The investment earnings on those contributions are covering the costs of those benefits. And by the way, the fewer than 200 retirees that the Herald wants to make an example of represent less than 1.5% of the total population of the Boston retirement system in terms of the retirees. Less than 1.5% of the total. It's hardly anything that should even be a blip on the radar screen. The Herald also conveniently leaves out that the average pension among City of Boston retirees is just over $41,000 a year. That's the average benefit. So we have some retirees making far less and some making a lot more, but that's how it averages out. There is no crisis anywhere in Massachusetts when it comes to our public pension systems. Now, Boston also deserves credit that they will be fully funded, as I said, in 2028. That's 12 years ahead of the statutory deadline of 2040 for full funding of our pension systems here in Massachusetts. Now, across the Commonwealth, all 104 systems are well on their way to being fully funded by the statutory deadline in 2040. The majority of the systems, the vast majority of the systems, will be fully funded within the next 10 years. The Commonwealth itself, the state and teacher systems, are scheduled as of now to be fully funded in 2036. And you're going to hear us talking a lot about pension funding schedules. It will be a major focus of the COLA Commission, which is contained in the state budget. All of these things are going to be factors that we're going to be talking about, and we'll be explaining some of these things in future weekly updates. But there is no crisis. We're ahead of the game. And as much as we want to focus right now on sharing or ensuring that the success of our pension systems are shared with all of you, and that's where our focus should be, because of these baseless attacks, and we are very concerned also at the local level when it comes to retiree health insurance, as city and town budgets continue to be more and more constrained and contracted. There is going to be an increased call from organizations like the Boston Herald and others to cut back on or reform, quote unquote, retiree health insurance benefits. And we've been down that road before. We've seen the movie, we know how it can end, and we're ready for it. We got to be out in front on these things. We have to take it seriously. That's why I'm spending the time today to talk to you about this, to highlight it for you. Because as much as our association is focused on improving benefits for our current as well as future members, that's our mission, at the same time, we also have to play defense when it comes to any type of an attack on your current benefits. You know, not only did you earn the benefits that you're receiving, or if you're a surviving spouse, your spouse earned these benefits, but they also paid for them. You paid for it. You continue to pay for it in terms of your health care. None of this is free. All of you know that. But when editorials like what the Herald ran on Tuesday go unanswered, it leads the general public to believe that all of you are receiving something that you didn't earn, that you didn't pay for, that you don't deserve. And not only is that extremely unfair and just not right and not factually true, it's also dangerous, because it makes it that much more difficult for us to improve the benefits, whether it's a COLA increase, whether it's protecting municipal health insurance, whether it is finally fixing weapon GPO at the national level. You've probably seen some of the comments that people at times leave on our social media page, taking just negative shots at public retirees because they read these types of things. They believe it to be true because it reinforces some type of a bias or political agenda they have, and it takes on a life of its own. So that's why we're spending the time in this week's message to highlight this for everybody, and more importantly, respond directly to it. So in terms of that response, just yesterday, our association president, Frank Valeri, submitted a letter to the editor, to the Boston Herald, rebutting these statements in their editorial. We have no idea whether or not the Herald will choose to publish Frank's letter. That's beyond our control. We want to share that with you. So his letter is also on our website, and the link to it's in today's email address or email message. In addition, we have also sent letters to Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, as well as every member of the Boston City Council. Not that we believe that the mayor or any of the elected officials in Boston will believe the nonsense that the Herald has written. We think it's important, and it's incumbent upon us to respond to those allegations and set the record straight. Because again, These things are important. We cannot take anything for granted, but at the same time, there's a lot to be celebrated and for the city of Boston to be proud of. Boston, again, has a very well-run and well-funded retirement system. The health insurance benefits in Boston are fantastic. Going all the way back to Kevin White, healthcare in Boston has been treated seriously, and retirees and active employees treated very fairly when it comes to healthcare benefits, and we need to make sure that those things continue and are maintained. Now, I want to leave today's message on a high note and on a positive note. So on a positive note, we have received confirmation that all 102 local retirement systems have approved the 3% COLA for FY25. That 3% COLA will be applied to whatever COLA base applies to that local retirement system. And most, if not all, retirees should receive the new COLA payment in the July pension check, which comes at the end of this month. For those of you who are a retired state employee or a retired teacher who's a member of the teacher's retirement system, your 3% COLA on the $13,000 base is contained in the state budget. However, the budget remains before the House Senate Conference Committee. We are anticipating that most likely early this coming week, probably by Tuesday at the latest, maybe Wednesday, a budget agreement will emerge from Conference Committee. We have every belief that the 3% COLA will be intact. The state has not missed a COLA payment for the past 26 years. We do not anticipate them missing this year. With all of the inflationary pressures that retirees are feeling, would be absolutely shocked if the COLA is not in the budget. Once the budget is passed, it will be sent to Governor Healy. She then has 10 days to review and take action on the budget. So that would return the budget to the legislature somewhere around July 26, 27, 28 in that time frame, which would leave 2, 3, 4 days for the legislature to take any additional action, whether it be overriding a veto or sending legislation back to the governor that she might send for correction. The legislative session, of course, ends at the end of this month on July 31st. Also contained in the budget, and this is very important, are 2 additional items that have been sponsored by and initiated by our association. One is the COLA Commission, which would be tasked with finding ways to improve the state and teacher retiree COLA base, as well as developing a senior or enhanced COLA to find a way forward to improve these benefits in a cost-effective manner. So that's item number 1. Also contained in the budget is the provision that would increase the basic life insurance benefits for retired state employees as well as active employees, going from the current $5,000 level up to $10,000 over the coming fiscal year. So we will be watching these developments very closely. We're cautiously optimistic that these items will survive conference and end up on the governor's desk. And we're also very cautiously optimistic that Governor Healy will continue to support these initiatives and sign them into law as part of the budget. That being said, the state and teacher COLA most likely will be paid in the August pension check. If the budget gets to her next week, there is not time for her to approve it and for the COLA benefit to be included in the July check. So most likely it will be in August and retroactive back to July 1st. But we'll have a full update on all of these issues next week. In the meantime, stay cool. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you again for tuning in today. Bye-bye, everybody.